Good morning. I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital desk. We're going to be taking you into court there. That man you see there is Jason Iverson. He is the man accused of shooting and killing his own pregnant sister and her husband at a Maple Heights park in the last couple of days. He's making his initial appearance. Let's take you live into court.
Mr. Steratore was assigned to be your counsel for purposes of this proceeding. Did you have an opportunity to speak to him, sir? Mr. Steratore, you had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Iverson?
I did, Your Honor.
All right. Did you receive a copy of the charges?
I did, Your Honor.
Did you waive any defect in the time, manner, and service of receipt of that?
I do, Your Honor.
Do you want to waive the reading of the charges in open court?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Iverson, the charges against you carry with it certain penalties. I'm going to go over them now. There are 2 counts of aggravated murder under revised code section 2903.01. The penalty for which is the imprisonment for life and a fine of $25,000 or death. There's also a charge of attempted aggravated murder, which is a felony of the first degree, carries with it an indefinite prison term with minimum terms selected by the court from 3 to 11 years, and a maximum term that is determined pursuant to section 2929.144 of the revised code. Also carries with it a possible fine of $20,000. Sir, you have certain rights as you proceed through the court system. Among those rights are the right to a trial, including a jury trial. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. You have one appointed for your benefit today. That's Mr. Steratore. You have the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses against you, as well as a right to call witnesses on your behalf, and the right to subpoena witnesses in order to have them testify
Celebrate fall
in your favor. You have the right to require that the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt all the elements of the offenses for which you've been charged. You also have the right to remain silent and right to a reasonable bail. Sir, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Steratore, have you had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Iverson about whether or not he desires a preliminary hearing?
I have, Your Honor. It's my understanding that Mr. Iverson would like to waive his right to a preliminary hearing, and he'll also request to be heard on the issue of bond.
Okay. And at this point, there's going to be I'm going to ask you for a technical plea as to count 1. Count 1 being a charge of aggravated murder.
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Okay, and as to count 2, charge of aggravated murder.
Not guilty.
And as to charge 3, a count of attempted aggravated murder.
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Okay, not guilty as to all charges.
Yes.
And what would you like to tell me about bond, sir?
Just briefly, Your Honor, I would emphasize, based upon my conversation with Mr. Iverson, and according to him, he does not have a criminal record at this time. He does have 3 children, including 1 child on the way, permanent residence in the Cleveland area. He was gainfully employed prior to his arrest with Walmart. He's also seen a psychiatrist and receiving mental health treatment. The reason I mentioned that is because he has been prescribed medicine, and I do want to make sure that he receives his medicine while he is in custody, Your Honor. Would ask the court to consider those factors and set a reasonable bond. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Iverson, is there anything you would like to add with regard to the issue of bond, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, given the nature and circumstances of the crime charged, the allegation of a weapon used, as well as the weight of the evidence supporting the allegations of the criminal offense, is finally the need for public safety, the bond is going to be $3 million. 10% cash or surety. That'll close this matter. This will be bound over to the Court of Common Pleas for Cuyahoga County. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Maple.
Thank you. The Officer Harrison, y'all did
Dan DeRose with 19 News as we conclude the hearing there for Jason Iverson. This is just a terrible story when you start to look at the details. He is accused of shooting and killing his sister right there, Mercedes Iverson, and her husband, Trey Carter. This was an incident at Stafford Park where, from what we're told by family, and we're going to hear from the mother in all of this, the mother of both Mercedes and of Jason, now accused of aggravated murder for shooting and killing his own sister, who was pregnant, 29 weeks pregnant at the time. R. Kelly Kennedy sat down with the family. It's a story you'll see on Just One station right here at Cleveland 19. Just a heartbreaking story, and even the mother isn't sure what happened. Take a look.
31-year-old Trey Carter and his wife, 30-year-old Mercedes Iverson, were getting ready to welcome a baby girl into the world in November. Iverson's mother, Cynthia Ivy, tells me they had already picked out a name, Ava.
They were very excited. Trey was more excited than Mercedes because Mercedes was the one that was sick.
She says the Parma couple was only at Stafford Park in Maple Heights on Labor Day to do her a favor, to drop off a stroller.
Then out of the blue, you know, my son shows up, and as soon as he sees them, he's just like, he just goes off. So I don't know what he was doing before that got him so enraged, you know, but he just wouldn't let up.
Do you have any idea why your son was so upset with your daughter and her husband?
Well, that's a long story in itself, you know, but the bottom line is he was holding a grudge. He just wouldn't let it go. It just festered, and I guess that was the end result.
Never in a million years could Ivy have imagined that her 29-year-old son, Jason Iverson, would shoot and kill his own pregnant sister and her husband in cold blood.
Him and his sister has always been close. You know, he's always been able to call her and she would bail him out of whatever it was.
What do you think it was? You think he just snapped?
I think so. You know, there were a couple of setbacks that he was dealing with in his life. And I guess he just couldn't handle it. Everything just came to a head. To my knowledge, he was supposed to have been seeking help. Being a parent, it's kind of hard when you have grown children that have issues because there's only so much you can do.
She says it's hard to accept that her daughter's killer and her son are the same person.
It's very hard for me to come to terms with that, you know, because they're both my kids.
That was R. Kelly Kennedy sitting down with the mother of now murdered Mercedes Iverson, and now her son, the accused murderer. We just saw Jason Iverson in court. We heard from his court-appointed attorney that he has been seeing a psychologist, and he's very worried about getting Mr. Iverson the medication that he has been taking with a bond set at $3 million. Whether or not his family comes up with that, the attorney making it a point to say if he has to stay in jail waiting for this process to play out, he's worried about getting him medication that he should be on. Just a terrible situation, a young couple expecting a child at 29 weeks pregnant, had already picked out a name for the little girl. And this is the end result. The mother dealing with a funeral, planning a funeral for a daughter and son-in-law, and now her son in court for the first time facing 2 counts of aggravated murder. That is for Mercedes and Trey. And then there was also a 13-year-old who was hit by a stray bullet. 13-year-old expected to survive, but that 13-year-old for the shot to that young man facing a 3rd count attempted aggravated murder for that 13-year-old. We're going to wrap this up. We will have complete details involving this just really tragic case with just a lot of questions, and even from their own mother, just not a lot of answers. If we have any other breaking news, it'll be right here on our digital platforms. Our 11 o'clock news is underway on CW43, then our noon news coming up on Channel 19. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News Now. Have a good afternoon.
19 News is everywhere.